Charles Bentley lived with his wife Novella and their 5 children in a home in the middle-class, undeveloped section on the city's east side, where most of the homes are old and small. Charles Bentley served 10 years in the Army as a paratrooper, and after he was discharged, the family lived in the San Francisco area until moving to Phoenix in 1967. He worked for John Freeman in the upholstery business. Born in Peru, Freeman operated an upholstery business from his Scottsdale home. His common-law wife was Esperanza, and they had 2 children, John, age 11, and Jeanette, age 8. Charles Bentley left his family several times, just picking up and leaving, but would return after a while. In February of 1971, he would leave again, not saying where he was going, and this time he abandoned his family for good. Novella applied for and received welfare assistance for her and her children, ages 9 months to 12 years. She was a loving mom whose children were her universe. She had short hair, rugged looks, and she surrounded her children with happiness, love, and positivity. John Freeman's wife, Esperanza, withdrew her children from school in April. She told them she was leaving her husband, which she did. She took the children and left. John didn't have any clue as to where she would have gone. He began showing up at the Bentley home on a regular basis, asking if Novella had heard from his wife or his children. He would come by twice a week, taking them to the movies, playing Monopoly, other games, and sometimes staying until 2 in the morning. Freeman began to really suspect that Charles Bentley had run off with his wife Esperanza and the 2 children. So he stopped paying his rent, and he would use that money and put it together with the money that he would get from selling his upholstery business. Now, he got evicted, but by June, he had his cash and he was ready to hit the road, which he did. He would travel to different parts of the country and try to find Esperanza and the children. Any place that she had mentioned in the past, that they had been to in the past, he would go to. By August, John had not found his wife or children. He was in a city in Ohio, and he would reach out to the local police department and the newspapers and request help, telling them that his wife and kids had been kidnapped. They caught on to his lie, and they declined. Back in Phoenix, Novella and Charles' other daughter, Pamela Martin, age 16, and her husband, Frank Martin, age 18, they moved in with Novella. Pamela was pregnant, and Novella needed help watching the children so she could kind of get going and find a job so that she could actually work. She was interested in doing a sewing business from her home. Frank's car had recently broken down, and he worked for a place called Whitehead's Easy Haul. That was in walking distance from the Bentley home. So the temporary move, really made sense for everybody involved. John Freeman was now in Los Angeles, California, and he was arrested in early September for child molestation, but the charge was reduced to child annoying and disturbing the peace. But a couple hours later, he was free on a $1,250 bond. He then headed back to Phoenix. When he was back in Phoenix, he went to the Bentley home and he talked to Novella. He had asked her for some items that he had left there previously, some clothing and ballet slippers. And it had been a few months, so Novella had told him that she had given them away. Now, this had made him really mad, and he left. Freeman returned to the house later that evening, armed with 2 guns. He went inside and opened fire, shooting Novella twice in the head and once in the leg. Frank Martin put up a fight and struggled with him, but he was able to overpower Frank and shoot him in the head and in the chest. He would go to Pamela Martin's room, where she was in bed. He shot her in the abdomen, in the face, and in the thighs. He went outside to his car and reloaded both guns and went back into the house, headed for the children's room. Charlotte was asleep in a crib. He shot her once in the head. She was 9 months old. Adam was in another bed. The 3-year-old was shot twice in the head. Tina Bentley, age 8, was shot once in the head. She shared a bed with Jacqueline Tracy, who was shot twice in the head. She was 18 months old. Neighbors had called police when they heard the gunshots. Police pulled up within 5 minutes. Freeman was arrested as he was attempting to hop a fence in the backyard. He threw down both guns when police had their guns drawn and called out to him. He had an injury to his hand and also an injury to one of his knees, but they were very minimal injuries. He was arrested on the scene and taken away. 24 shots were fired by Freeman in the Bentley home. Records show that he purchased the revolvers the day of the massacre. Police learned that another daughter of Novella, named Debbie, she's 12 years old, she had spent the night at a friend's house for her birthday that evening, and she was not there when the murders took place. The murders made headlines around the country and in some areas around the world. The investigation and court testimony led police to determine that Freeman killed Novella and everyone in the house because he thought his wife and Charles Bentley had run off together, which did not happen. Police uncovered some information about Freeman, which included that he had taught Spanish the previous spring at Saguaro High School in Scottsdale under questionable academic credentials. He had been arrested for auto theft, assaulting an officer, 2 cases of child molestation. He also had a real estate license, but that lasted 2 months because he was fired for stealing real estate signs, an office key, and other items. At the time he was arrested, he had a roll of cash and an airplane ticket to Tucson under a false name. Police attempted to contact Charles Bentley, but they didn't know where he was. He remained out of the picture. At one point, Esperanza attempted to hire a lawyer for John Freeman. In 1972, he was committed to the Arizona State Hospital, and this angered a lot of people, as it should have. In 1974, there was a hearing, and Ralph Martin, father of Frank Martin, lunged at Freeman and had to be restrained. Freeman would be sent to prison a year later when he was sentenced to 7 consecutive life terms, 1 for each person he killed, even though it really should have been 8, since he specifically fired a gun into the abdomen of a pregnant Pamela, 16 years old. He would remain in prison until his death in 2010, never taking any responsibility, only playing the victim. His daughter visited him one time and never returned. The Bentleys had additional children. At the time of the murders, there was Stephen Bentley, who was 24 years old, and his wife Margaret. They lived in Tempe at the time, and they had another sister, Babs Stern, who lived with her husband Gary in Sacramento. Debbie Bentley, who miraculously was not in the home at the time, she would spend time with her brother after the murders. Frank Martin and Pamela Martin are buried together at the Mountain View Funeral Home and Cemetery in Mesa, Arizona. Novella Bentley and her children, Jacqueline Tracy, Adam, Tina, and Charlotte, are buried at the Rest Him and Car Tenney Mortuary and Memorial Gardens in Phoenix, Arizona. Novella and Charlotte, who was 9 months old, are buried together. The location as it appears today on MapQuest where the house once stood. It's been a dirt lot for quite a while, but the house stood for quite a long time after the murders. Different residents. One of the newspapers even said that there had been another murder in the early 80s, I believe, where a woman shot her husband. And here's what it looks like going down to the location. They have built another structure over the lot that appears to be storage units, I think. At the exact location where the Bentley home once stood. We're on a September evening. 7 lives, really 8 lives were taken. Officially 7. In a horrific manner, as it appears today.